Please, chosen one, refrain from proceeding, scrolling, or averting your gaze. If you leave in the next few seconds, you will miss out on an unforgettable moment. What you're about to hear is not information. Don't. This is a warning specific to this moment in time. Furthermore, the fact that you are hearing it is no coincidence. Pay close attention. Additionally, stay in your current location. The reason for the recent intensity of loneliness is due to the information I am about to reveal. For what reason? No one arrived when you most needed it. What was the reason for the complete stillness, and why did it not indicate abandonment? It was a far more deliberate action. A product that has been specifically designed to target you. An event occurred 96 hours ago that has never happened in the 4,000-year history of humanity. Not through a messenger, nor through an apparition. Celestial records express God's genuine surprise. And the event that triggered it was not public. It was neither commemorated or observed. It was an independent action that you carried out. Support is unavailable. Complete lack of recognition. No one is encouraging you. No one was aware of what you were transporting. The following is the truth that will break down the story you've been telling yourself about why your journey has been so isolating. There are people who are chosen and continually supported. In addition, some people are chosen to face all challenges on their own. There is no rescue. Absence of reinforcement. There is no assurance. You were assigned to the second path, not as a consequence of your failure. This is not because you were overlooked. However, the transformation you are experiencing is not possible through any other means. The majority of people are unaware of the distinction. They assume that loneliness is synonymous with rejection. They believe that their silence indicates that they were overlooked. However, that assumption masks an even more concerning reality. There is a reason why the door opened for you. Furthermore, there was a reason for the event's isolation. The reason for this has yet to be disclosed. Only those who survive will understand why the exact moment occurred. Please refrain from departing. Not at this time. The information about to be revealed has been purposefully concealed, buried in silence. Because if the chosen individuals realized the true weight of the burden they carried alone, they would never see themselves the same way again. It was never intended that you assess your journey through the lens of applause or witnesses. The events you witnessed were beyond the scope of human understanding. This is precisely why it was significant. Continue like this until the end. Because your battle was unambiguous. It was not a figment of our imagination. A particular conflict occurred. A precise moment when all pressure increased and no one stood by your side. It was obvious to heaven. God acknowledged the situation, not just because of your distress. Nonetheless, the fortitude that rose within you when help was unavailable. Others would have surrendered. The rescue of others would have been requested. You remained. You persevered. The weight of that endurance has not yet been revealed to you. Scripture conveys what few understand. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted. From a distance, proximity does not equate to comfort. It is a presence that has been shaped by hardship. Despite your belief that you were invisible, you were being purposefully identified. Something was being established that could not be undone while you thought you were just surviving. This did not start yesterday. You barely recognize yourself from a season that occurred months ago. That was the point of intersection. The place where a task was completed in silence. And the consequences of such a victory are never minor. Nothing has been said about you yet. The consequences of your refusal to surrender are yet to be determined. But it's already started to move. And if you persevere, you will eventually realize the importance of walking that section alone. The change in your life was so subtle that you initially questioned your own abilities. Individuals who were previously close together began to disperse for no apparent reason. Messages that had previously been quickly responded to were met with indifference. Suddenly, those who had arrived without being asked had no time, space, or margin for you. It possessed a subtle, almost imperceptible quality. But it continued to spread. This was not an example of paranoia. Sensitivity was not a factor. A genuine separation has occurred. Furthermore, it was felt more deeply because of your lack of understanding about the actions that entitle you to such treatment. Then, months later, that moment arrived. The one you can still remember with clarity. When tragedy struck, you instinctively sought help. You contacted the person who had responded to your previous inquiries. Something wasn't right when they talked. Not a condemnation. Something that is much cooler. Indifference. Your discomfort appeared to be a minor disruption to their day. You ended the call in a hollower tone than you had before. In addition to the issue at hand, you are now burdened with the shock of discovering that the support you had relied on was no longer available when it was most needed. You made another attempt. Once more. The sound of each response was distinct, but it was delivered in the same way. Preoccupied. I apologize. Not at this time. A later time. The future never materialized. You eventually came to a realization that caused you to stop breathing. There was no one in the way. The rescue was not imminent. Nobody else was going to transport it for you. That was the night you finally confronted it. Isolated. You were unable to pay. Not in silence. Not in a respectful manner. You were overwhelmed by its weight. A person was once described in the Bible as being abandoned at night until he engaged in a solo wrestling match. He changed his gait when morning arrived. You were also impacted by that evening. Because surrendering in solitude does not imply defeat. It is the point at which strength emerges, and no one else can influence it. Without help, you faced an impossibility. You couldn't run away from it. You continued to exist. And that decision altered everything. Yes, even if you weren't aware of it. Let us pause for a moment before proceeding. This is not a random occurrence. If this message seems important to you, it is because of a recent revelation. Therefore, cease. Allow yourself to be fully present by taking a moment of silence. Before we begin, I'd like you to perform an action that may appear simple, but it has profound spiritual significance and active agreement within your spirit. Initially, like this video, allow that action to become more than just a habit. Let this be a declaration. I agree with the words of God that are spoken over my existence. Second, subscribe to and stay connected to a flow of messages from heaven to keep your spirit conscious, aligned, and discerning, so you don't miss out on what's meant for you. Our goal is to have 20,000 subscribers. Third, please provide your city and country, as well as the number of inches you have in the comments, 999 or 777. Allow this to serve as a subtle but powerful symbol between you and the Lord. I am prepared. My spirit is receptive. I am receiving the truth that you are revealing. Furthermore, those who are inspired to support this ministry through prayers, comments, or the Super Thanks feature should be aware of this. You are not just donating. As a collaborator and colleague, you contribute to this sacred mission. Your assistance is not haphazard. It is oneness. It is your expression of readiness to obey your commands, Lord. I concur. This is what you were unable to see during that dark night. Isolation was not an error. Punishment was not administered. It was no coincidence that you were turned against. It was strategic, sacred, and intentional. The silent removal of all human support layers was not intended to cause you to collapse, but rather to reveal strength that you would not have discovered if someone had continued to rescue you. Heaven was attentive, not distant, and closely monitoring you while you thought you were abandoned. The events that occurred defined that moment. A chosen individual is on the verge of discovering a previously unknown capacity. As a result of the looming conflict, the majority of people could only survive with the help of reinforcement, protection, and numbers. However, you had to face it without any of that. There are no reserves. There is no barrier present. Your will alone. Just your unadulterated, unwavering belief that life was still worth protecting. The situation remained unchanged when morning arrived. The wait persisted. However, you were not identical. There was no sudden clarity, no voice, no thunder. Only a severe realization. Disappearance was the result of remaining seated. The only remaining route was up. Consequently, you relocated. It wasn't because you were confident. Not because you had the answers. You relocated because you did not have any remaining assets. You proceeded without any assurances. You made your decision without knowing for certain. You acted with the understanding that failure was possible. However, surrendering was not an option. In that instant, an entity that transcended thought and terror refused to give up control. That refusal did not indicate intransigence. It was an awakening to one's identity. And once that awakening occurs, nothing remains the same. Section 5. Independently progressing. Fall, rise, and then make a new decision. This is the portion that few people understand. It began to function. Not in an orderly manner. Not all at once. However, this was enough to give you a glimmer of hope that you might be able to get through this on your own. As a result, you implemented an additional measure. Then another. Following that, there were numerous other instances. Each is unaided. Each person is accountable for their actions, without anyone else to rely on. There is nobody else to blame. You made a mistake. There were times when the weight was so heavy that you couldn't move at all. Nights when you urgently cried out for help, not quietly, in the hope that someone would respond. Nobody did. The same decision was made every time you encountered silence. Either stop at this point, or continue on your own. You persisted, even though it took days to regain your footing. Are you aware of how many invisible battles were necessary? The frequency with which you opposed a straightforward escape. The silent resignation. Gradually dissipating. How many correct decisions did you make while your innermost being begged for mercy? This was never a single altercation. It was consistent. Days were stacked on top of each other. Hours are compressed into hours. Nobody celebrated the victory you won every time you refused to give up. No one noticed. No one expressed gratitude. No one. With the exception of God. As the Bible once said, "The eyes of the Lord ranged throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to Him." He saw everything. The passage of time happened. Weeks turned into months. And then, Almost imperceptibly, something happened. You were making progress, gradually, in a low voice, without acknowledgement, without reinforcement. Anyone believed you without evidence. Nonetheless, you were progressing, not through coercion, without using spectacles. However, with a fortitude that is unique to those who have mastered the ability to stand upright in the absence of others. Then, the moment arrived. 3 months ago. Upon convergence of all factors, you stood in front of the last barrier, the final impediment to your breakthrough. It was huge, immobile. It was so overwhelming that for the first time in a long time, you publicly acknowledged your feelings. I am unable to comprehend this. This cannot be accomplished. And you were not mistaken. It demanded what you lacked based on any reasonable standard. Resources were missing. The skills were not completely developed. There was no help available. However, instead of giving in to the weight of the impossibility, an ancient force within you awoke. Something had been quietly developing for quite some time. This moment was influenced by every battle you fought alone. Training had been the foundation of each unobserved victory. Like David, who stepped forward without armor while others remained stationary. You relocated without authority, without reassurance, without reassurance. The battle is the Lord's, as Scripture once stated. However, your limbs still needed to move, and they did. You awoke with raw courage. The action was fueled by desperation, a refusal to be stopped after traveling this far independently. You persevered despite exhaustion. You pondered until your thoughts ignited. You rearranged every item in your possession. You used up all of your reserves. And just when you thought there was nothing left, more materialized. This was followed by 3 weeks of total conflict. Nights became shorter. The remainder has been ignored. The people in your vicinity noticed the change, but they were unable to identify it. Emotion was absent. The intensity defied explanation. A testament that was written under duress. A resolve that no longer questioned the viability of victory. The sole requirement was that defeat no longer be considered an option. And that's when everything started to tilt. Then something happened. 64 days ago. Nobody observed the aftermath of conflicts. Following the endurance test that should have exhausted you. After being in a position where the majority would have given up. You exceeded the limit. You emerged victorious. Not by a small margin. In its entirety. That was not a small victory. In every visible way, it was the type of victory that should not have been yours. You succeeded in overcoming a situation that normally requires force, protection, and numbers. Nonetheless, you completed the task on your own, holding your wrists steady. Your own consciousness is uncluttered. Your determination is unwavering. And when it was finally over, as the din subsided and the burden eased, there was no applause for you. The absence of crowds. Complete lack of recognition. There was no indication that the world comprehended what had happened. Only silence. You. Isolated. Accepting the reality of your recent actions. However, silence does not necessarily mean that nothing happened. You remained calm after the storm. There was some unseen movement. Previously, Scripture stated, a strong wind was present. However, the Lord did not appear in the breeze. After the fire, there was a gentle murmur. During the silence, heaven was fully awake. God had observed every moment, every single decision, each refusal to yield. And the events that occurred during that time were unusual. Without a doubt, this is not a correction. Is this possible? It wasn't because of your unexpected strength. However, due to your use of it, unwavering determination. The determination. You continued to advance when it would have been logical to give up. God has observed the rise and fall of generations. He's previously witnessed impossible victories. However, this one stood out because of its weight. And that distinction is about to become more important than you may realize. The subsequent event is extremely rare, almost unheard of. A war of that magnitude has only been won by a select few without the assistance of allies. No reinforcement was provided. Without a single instance of human validation, you succeeded. And that victory has altered how you are now recognized by the higher realms. A council met 96 hours ago. Not symbolic. Finished. Game of Thrones. Archangels. Seraphim. The entire order has been collected. Then, an unprecedented event occurred. God revealed the full details of your conflict. This is not a summation, not the highlights. Every autumn, every single tear. You almost came to a halt at every opportunity, but you eventually decided to continue. They witnessed triumphs that were not acknowledged by anyone. The actions you took were not guaranteed to be effective. Decisions made with disregard for safety. The audience did not applaud. The council observed in silence. There were no words when it ended, because they had witnessed an uncommon level of resolve, even outside of the human realm. Then God gave a statement. Additionally, every word was documented. This chosen individual accomplished what the majority of people are unable to do, even with help. He completed the task on his own. He did not simply endure. He achieved complete victory. After that declaration, an event occurred that had never happened before at a gathering of this kind. The heads of the seraphim were lowered. Not included in the ritual. In acknowledgement. A boundary had been crossed. Because there are different levels among the chosen. Certain individuals have potential. Certain people develop proficiency. Some people receive assistance with completing their assignments. Then there is a completely different category. Individuals who succeed in accomplishing the impossible when all support is lost. You chose that category. Not in line with the title. Not via a public announcement. By means of evidence. By your actions when no one else was present, except for heaven itself. However, recognition was not the end. A decree was issued as a result. An order issued with the intention of changing the scale, timing, and direction. In essence, God stated that this person has demonstrated the ability to succeed on his own. Now, contemplate the consequences of his lack of obligation. Did you experience that change? The isolation was never intended to persist. It functioned as a testing ground. A fire that is used to forge. Additionally, you have successfully completed the most rigorous examination now. The events that follow will demolish every boundary that you previously believed to be the limit of your life. Due to the fact that the decree that has been issued to you has 3 potential consequences, each unfolding in its own season. Initially, new individuals will begin to enter your life within 90 days. not in a casual way, not at random. These will be individuals who operate at a spiritual level that is distinct from that of any other individual you have encountered. Warriors, not spectators. They will immediately identify you, not as a result of your statements. Nevertheless, due to the circumstances in which you prevailed independently, you will not conduct a search for them. You will refrain from providing an explanation. Evidence has already been presented. One by one, they will arrive, precision fitting into the designated location. Additionally, this is the factor that unites you. Additionally, each of them encountered insurmountable obstacles in solitude. Scripture once stated that two individuals can defend themselves, despite the fact that one may be defeated. Those who acquire the ability to stand independently are being assembled by God, not because they required assistance. However, they achieved partnership as a result. Also, you will be the one who carries authority among them. Secondly, the opportunity you previously pursued will resurface within 180 days. However, it will not be as you had envisioned. It will surpass it. It will be in perfect harmony with the individual you developed during your time of solitude. It will be immediately apparent to you. It is not because of chance. Nevertheless, as a deliberate design. Furthermore, there will be no scrambling upon its arrival. No feigning. You will be prepared because the battle has transformed you into the individual who is capable of receiving it. Third, there will be a moment that you are unable to keep private within the next year. What you have accomplished independently will be apparent. It is not due to your desire for recognition. However, victories of that magnitude are not concealed. Individuals who withdrew will observe the structures that were constructed without their participation. Additionally, they will experience the consequences of their failure to attend. However, you will not derive pleasure from their regret. Something within you has undergone a transformation. Compassion will endure. Nevertheless, dependence will not develop. Validation from those who have departed is no longer necessary when one achieves victory independently. You are no longer defined by their absence. Their perspectives no longer influence you. You have transcended the necessity for what they were unable to provide. The decree did not conclude with the provision of a reward. Additionally, it implemented safeguards. Due to the fact that your accomplishments are not overlooked, it induces feelings of envy. It incites opposition. It attracts the attention of individuals who were previously unimportant. Because of this, safeguards were implemented, functioning on 3 distinct levels. The first level is automatic defense. They will begin to unravel in their own lives if they attempt to sabotage what you have constructed in isolation. It is not because you expressed your disapproval of them, not as a result of your resistance. However, the act of opposing a chosen one who has demonstrated faithfulness in solitude has its own repercussions. Self-defense is not mandatory. The safeguard is currently operational. It will be quietly apparent to you. The individuals who spoke out against you experiencing sudden instability. The plans of those who conspired in secret were exposed. The emergence of concealed intentions without your consent. This was not an accident. It is a form of protection that prevents threats from ever reaching you. The second level is directional shielding. False paths will not be accessible. Opportunities that appear appealing but would divert you from your identity will not resonate. And if one does emerge, an internal component of you will immediately reject it. Despite the fact that it appears flawless on paper, your spirit will not concur. Scripture once cautioned that even the elect could be deceived if it were feasible. The temptation to prioritize ease over purpose becomes subtle after one has survived alone, as God is aware. A few offers would make assurances of relief, but they would also steal your call. This safeguard prevents them from establishing a foothold. Clarity is the third level. Understanding will emerge from within you when decisions are significant, not as confusion or noise, but as certainty. A knowledge that surpasses logic rather than contesting it. By adhering to that inner clarity, you will avoid making errors in the most critical areas. Because one who learned to choose correctly without guidance, without reassurance, without support, has proven trustworthy. When the situation necessitates it, direct guidance is provided to foster that level of trust. This is not a gratuity. It is a reaction to the suffering you have already experienced. Additionally, the forthcoming events are currently being safeguarded. The decree contains additional information. This is the point at which comprehension begins to expand. God was not only taken aback by the ordeal you underwent. He was profoundly affected by it, even to the extent that he made an uncommon decision. Your journey would serve as a beacon for those who are still fighting in isolation. At present, there are numerous individuals who have been selected to occupy the same position as you all over the world. Isolated, unseen, and carrying battles that no one acknowledges, they wonder if they were forgotten and question whether they have enough strength left to continue without support. And God is revealing the essence of what you did without announcing your name, without revealing your face or details. They are being shown that someone endured what they are enduring and did not break through dreams, quiet impressions, or sudden knowing. That it is feasible to prevail without witnesses. Abandonment is not implied by that solitude. Your triumph has evolved into a beacon of light that you never intended to wield. A signal that is transmitted to individuals whom you will never encounter. During times when they are tempted to give up, your refusal to surrender is a source of strength for others. You did not fight solely for your own benefit. Additionally, you were unaware of the extent of your endurance. This is the magnitude of your work independently. Much more than your future, it was altered. It altered the internal environment of selected individuals worldwide. You maintained your standing, which resulted in darkness losing ground. This is why the subsequent events are of even greater significance. This is the inquiry that has been preoccupying you. Which of the numerous battles you engaged in astonished the divine? It was not the most impressive, the loudest, or the one that others could have observed. It was the most tranquil. It was the internal conflict. The altercation that no one observed. 5 months ago, the opportunity to compromise was present, and no one would have questioned your decision to enter. The simpler route was accessible, appropriate, reasonable. On your own you were, not visible, unrecorded, absence of eyes. There are no repercussions. You, your conscience, and God are the only ones who matter. At that moment, you opted for integrity, despite the fact that surrender would have been of no apparent cost. Not because someone was watching, but because a part of you would not betray what it knew to be true. You did not submit to external pressure. Rather, you resisted internal weakness. That decision, which was silent and invisible, was more significant than any public victory you had achieved. When reputation is at stake, anyone has the ability to make the right decision. Everyone is capable of exhibiting positive behavior when the repercussions are evident. However, to remain faithful in the face of obscurity when no one would ever know if you were unsuccessful, that is a depth that few can achieve. That moment was observed by God. He annotated it. And the conversation that took place about you at that time was documented. Witnesses are unnecessary for this chosen individual to execute the righteous course of action. Does not necessitate affirmation to remain accurate. Does not require an audience to be who they are. Rare is the occurrence of such integrity. A response was released in recognition of that unseen victory, which is only known to you and God. This is due to the fact that actions that are undertaken in secret are not kept secret. According to the Bible, what is sown in silence will be revealed in the open. The blessing that cannot be ignored is always the result of integrity that is carried in silence. At all times, without exception. What you accomplished independently has a more sinister repercussion. It was not unnoticed in the lower realms. Fear has been incited. Because if you accomplish the impossible without assistance, resources, or support, then a single question terrifies them. What transpires subsequent to the intervention of heaven itself? That apprehension is not arbitrary. A chosen individual who is capable of achieving victory independently is already perilous. However, a chosen individual who has demonstrated their strength and subsequently receives reinforcement is uncontrollable. As a result, pressure will rise. Not in an outward manner. Internally. Subtle, persistent endeavors to undermine your position. You may observe thoughts that appear to be your own, yet they are burdened with an unusual significance. There were voices that suggested it was a matter of luck, that it could have been accomplished by anyone, that it was not as significant as it appeared, that you are exaggerating the events that occurred. These whispers are not accurate. The enemy accuses day and night, as Scripture once cautioned. When direct opposition is unsuccessful, doubt is the preferred weapon. This is the manner in which you respond. You refrain from engaging in arguments. You recall. Recall each instance in which you were on the brink of quitting but ultimately persevered. Each night, you wept in solitude. Each step you took without any applause. Each battle that you survived without any witnesses. Those memories are not indicative of weakness. They are armor. The actions that were taken in isolation cannot be undone by any voice. A victory that was achieved without assistance can be undone by no accusation. The ground that you have acquired through endurance is not abandoned. You're situated within it. Additionally, the uncertainty is eliminated through the act of standing. This is due to the fact that what was achieved independently cannot be taken by anyone. There is one additional truth that you must comprehend regarding the current situation. The isolation you experienced was not merely a test. It was a result of formation. It instructed you in the most uncommon strength that a chosen individual can possess. Spiritual autonomy. Crowds are no longer necessary to verify your identity. You are no longer reliant on applause to advance. In the most challenging classroom environment conceivable, you acquired an understanding of your value. Complete seclusion. Continuously exerting pressure. No eyewitnesses. No amount of praise could ever accomplish what that type of soil can. As stated in the Bible, "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not be in want." You experienced that truth prior to identifying it. You discovered that you could endure without an external source of energy. This is the point at which leadership is initiated. Those who require constant validation become irritated by criticism. However, those who were created independently and have acquired the ability to endure without external validation are impervious to destruction. They are unyielding in their stance. They remain intact in the face of rejection. You unwittingly evolved into that type of leader. You are no longer susceptible to social dismissal, as you have already endured complete exclusion and emerged unscathed. The worst-case scenario was encountered by you, standing alone in the face of the impossibility. Additionally, you refrained from retreating. It is now clear to you that nothing that lies ahead can undo you. You have already confronted and surmounted your most profound apprehension. You did not merely endure it. You exercised authority over it. Consequently, the forthcoming events will necessitate the strength you currently possess. An invitation will be received within 3 months. Its origin will remain unknown to you. You will not comprehend the rationale behind your selection. However, it will provide a gateway through which all of the knowledge you have acquired in isolation will suddenly become comprehensible. The abilities you acquired without the guidance of mentors. Strength that is developed without assistance. The knowledge acquired without guidance. What was once perceived as abandonment will be revealed as meticulous preparation. A moment of impossible alignment will occur within 6 months. A gathering. A message. A piece of information that arrives at the precise moment you require it. It will be so precise that coincidence cannot account for it. As the Bible once stated, He makes everything beautiful in its time. You will observe that the timing is not delayed. It is intended to provide assistance. The most challenging test will occur within 9 months. Not a struggle, but a state of comfort. The inclination to cease expansion. To become comfortable with the accomplishments you have already achieved. To put it simply, this is sufficient. There are numerous individuals who are selected to reside here. They retire inwardly after achieving victory independently. They conflate survival with completion. However, the purpose for which you were created extends beyond mere personal triumph. The urge to remain secure will be palpable. In order to safeguard the tranquility that you have acquired through pain, refusing that urge will result in a loss of tranquility. It will prompt you to re-enter the risk zone once security has actually arrived, making the decision to prioritize growth over rest. However, if you persist in your efforts to advance when it would be more convenient to halt, multiplication will commence within 12 months. The reward of a single victory with a minor increase is not given by God. The Bible demonstrates that those who are faithful with a small amount are entrusted with a great deal. The foundation was the work you completed independently. Expansion is the subsequent step, not an addition. Multiplication. Then, within a year, some of those who have departed will attempt to join you again. Explanations will accompany them. For the following reasons. Regrettably. Finally, this is the quietest examination. Forgive them without re-establishing previous access. Bitterness is alleviated through forgiveness. However, wisdom retains the lessons that absence imparts. Some individuals may return in new capacities. Others are required to remain outside. You will be able to discern the distinction. Your discernment was enhanced by solitude. Your perception was enhanced by betrayal. You are now making your decision not out of pain, but rather out of clarity. This is not the conclusion of the journey. This is the moment at which all activity commences. As the chosen one, listen to this as the truth, not as solace. Your suffering was never arbitrary. Failure was never the result of your collapse. The nights you believed you were breaking were not indicators of weakness. Rather, they were evidence of a strength that could only be revealed under such a high level of pressure. The very thing that was intended to crush you was ultimately evidence that something divine was already at work within you. Scripture once stated, "We are pressed on every side, but not crushed." And you lived for that long before you comprehended it. You were being revealed, not destroyed. You were being marked by each moment you believed you were losing. Your endurance is being assessed. I am recognizing your authority, marking you for a form of greatness that is not easily inherited, replicated, or acquired at a low cost. The fire was the evidence, and you were not spared. You were not rescued at an early stage because the process of formation in you necessitated complete exposure to the weight. You are not currently being directed to be soothed. You are being summoned, awakened, enabled. The object that is approaching you is neither diminutive nor gentle. The hand that has been sculpting you did not do so in order to rest, but rather to move. Not for the sake of applause, but for the sake of effect. Not to ensure your safety, but to enhance your efficiency. Do not be deceived by the current tranquility. Unveiling frequently precedes silence. The suffering you have endured has already been heard in realms beyond your sight. Your survival has already initiated events that will soon take on a visible form. And when they do, you will comprehend the necessity of the situation. The reason you were compelled to walk it alone. The reasons why it is impossible to expedite any process. You are not late. You are not overlooked. You have not yet completed the task. You are being guided toward an entity that does not manifest itself immediately. Something that does not provide a predetermined explanation. A threshold has been recently breached. Not yet closed. Entrance. And the full form of what awaits on the other side has not yet been revealed. You observed what no one acknowledged, God of concealed battles and unseen victories. In silence, you tallied each stride you took, each decision that is rendered without the presence of witnesses. Integrity was prioritized over convenience at all times. I am not seeking to be spared. Rather, I am seeking to be aligned. Allow what was created in solitude to now progress with purpose. Be cautious of what you have roused. Strengthen the information you have disclosed. Eliminate any elements that are no longer appropriate for the entity you have created in the dark. I refrain from soliciting consolation. I request precision. I do not request simplicity. I request that you be prepared. Seal doors that are required to close. Illuminate the areas where paths must be opened. Allow courage to emerge more rapidly than fear. Doubt is drowned out by obedience, and the truth persists when the noise subsides. Bring forward in power what you have secretly marked. At the time you have appointed. I stand. Not yet completed. Unafraid. Not turning back. One that has been selected. If this message spoke to you, if it lifted you, if it awakened something deep within you, your response matters more than you realize. Take a moment to go to the comments and write 999 or 777. Also, share your city and where you're listening from. Let this be a quiet declaration of alignment and agreement with what is unfolding in your life right now. If you haven't yet, subscribe and stay connected not just to a channel, but to a growing community of faith. As we're moving toward 20,000 subscribers, your presence helps ensure this message continues reaching hearts that are ready in this moment. And to those who feel led to partner in this mission through your comments or by using the Super Thanks feature, thank you. No contribution is insignificant. Even the smallest act of support can carry hope to someone who needs it. Your support helps this message travel far beyond what any of us could do alone. Thank you for choosing to stand in this moment. Your purity is protected. Your morale is improving. Your destiny is being revealed. And you are not alone. What if the reason this message unsettled you is because the next move is no longer optional? I concur. There is a reason why you were told to view this alone, Chosen One. Stop all your activities, Chosen One. Please do not browse, multitask, or divide your attention between this and other activities at this time. This is not appropriate for people who are in close proximity. Remove any external noise. Disregard your thoughts that are preoccupied with planning the next course of action. Because God has just interrupted your entire day to convey a message that can only be understood in its entirety. This message was not intended to be used as background noise. This was meant to be absorbed in solitude, in silence, with no distractions. Additionally, if you are unable to do so at this time, please save this page and return to it later. Because the content about to be spoken requires your full attention, not just fragmented attention. Take a deep, genuine breath. Observe how your thorax feels more constricted than it should be. Note the increased volume of your thoughts. Observe how your spirit has become overcrowded despite your physical isolation. This is not a mere coincidence. That is not a concern. That's a spiritual endeavor. And God drew you here, away from everything familiar and everyone, to tell you the truth and explain why you must remain silent for another period of time. I will begin with this. God instructed us to observe this alone because the information He is about to reveal cannot be filtered by the opinions, questions, or energy of others. Certain truths are so personal, precisely scheduled, and uniquely assigned to you that allowing anyone else into the room while you receive them would diminish their impact. This is one of those cases. This is one of these communications. This is one of those divine interruptions that only makes sense to the person for whom it was intended. Words would be heard by everyone else, but you are about to receive confirmation. Have you felt isolated lately? They are physically, emotionally, and spiritually isolated. It's as if you're standing in rooms full of people, but you're completely disconnected from them. It's as if conversations are taking place around you, but nothing is conveyed. It's as if you're physically present, but your spirit is in a completely different place, and you're worried about it. You have been thinking about whether you are isolating yourself, engaging in antisocial behavior, or alienating others. However, what if none of the aforementioned are correct, and you choose one? Are you experiencing isolation or insulation? God has enveloped you in a spiritual cocoon. He has been directing you away from distractions, drama, opinions, expectations, and even well-intentioned voices that may disrupt the work He is currently doing within you as you form. You're undergoing a transformation. The process of recalibration is currently underway. You are undergoing a profound enhancement that cannot occur in public. This cannot happen during a conversation. It is impossible for it to happen while you are attempting to express your thoughts to people who will not understand them, regardless of whether you have the necessary vocabulary. Consequently, God eliminated the audience. He cleared the room. He did not silence the voices to punish you with loneliness, but rather to keep you safe during the transition. I'll now explain why this safeguard is necessary. Someone has been testing you, possibly multiple people, in a subtle, strategic manner without being overtly aggressive. They've been expressing things that reopen old wounds, bringing up topics they know will irritate you, asking seemingly innocent questions that are actually quite heavy. and making seemingly innocuous comments that leave you feeling uneasy. The most distressing aspect is that it is difficult to identify because it appears to be insignificant. Nonetheless, your spirit is aware. Your discernment detects what logic fails to confirm, and you have been experiencing feelings of irrationality as a result of your concern about incidents that were technically not assaults, but were nonetheless. Certainly they were. The fact that someone grins while stabbing does not necessarily mean that the knife is not genuine. The use of gentle language does not imply that the intention is not pointed. The fact that someone appears nervous does not mean that they are not conducting an experiment to see if you will respond, defend, explain, or collapse. God also observed it. God felt it. God has declared enough. This is the reason He brought you to this location. This is why He separated you. This is why He advises you to remain silent for a longer period of time. If you respond, defend, or explain at this time, you will grant access to people who no longer have clearance to advance to the next level. It is critical that I reiterate this. Not everyone who had access to your previous season is given access to your next one. Everyone who knew you before is unfamiliar with the new you. Not everyone who accompanied you through the valley has the opportunity to accompany you to the mountain. And this is not heartless. That is not frigid. This is the essence of wisdom. That is the boundary. That is safeguarding. Because the version of you that God is revealing cannot coexist with those who are still attempting to connect with the version that He has previously interred. You've recently observed a situation. Your tolerance for specific situations has completely faded. Conversations that were once enjoyable now appear to be exhausting. Individuals you used to enjoy are now draining. Environments that were previously easy to navigate now seem oppressive. Drama that once captivated you is now immediately repulsive. You've been thinking about whether you're being overly judgmental, too severe, or too sensitive. But what if you aren't? What if your spirit has simply moved to a frequency that is no longer associated with disorder, deception, and dysfunction? What if God changed your spiritual antenna to the point where you can't tolerate what used to feel normal because normal was never meant to be your permanent address? The following is the actual situation. God is teaching you a new language. The language of discernment. The language of silence. The language of boundaries, which lacks explanation. The language of abandonment is devoid of resolution. The language of relying on one's emotions even when one cannot prove their knowledge. Additionally, this language cannot be acquired through noise. It cannot be acquired in large groups. It is impossible to learn this knowledge while defending oneself against those who question one's progress. It must be learned alone, in silence, in separation, in the peaceful space between who you were and who you are becoming. And the location you chose is where you are now. You are in the transition zone, the gap. In addition, the situation is uncomfortable due to a lack of clarity. You are no longer the person you were, and you are not yet fully the person you are becoming. The new skin has not yet fully formed, and you are in the process of shedding your old skin. You are leaving a familiar place, but you have not yet arrived at your new destination. And this area is viewed as vulnerable, exposed, and uncertain. However, it is also held sacred. This is also essential. It is also a place of transformation. The caterpillar does not become a butterfly by remaining at ease. It transforms into a butterfly after undergoing a process that appears to be death, but eventually results in flight. Please allow me to inform you about the enemy's plans. He understands that you are in a state of transition. He is aware that you are relocating. He understands that God is repositioning you for a more profound purpose that will have a greater global impact than your previous season. Furthermore, he is powerless to stop the decree that God has already issued. He cannot reverse the decree that God has already issued. He cannot change the release that God has already made. However, he has the ability to distract, provoke, exhaust, and confuse you. He can also trick you into reacting emotionally rather than strategically, defending yourself rather than relying on God's defense, and attempting to explain your life rather than allowing it to be explained. So he has been sending you test after test, conversation after conversation, situation after situation, all with the intention of forcing you to react and breaking you out of your state of stillness. These are all intended to force you to prove yourself rather than rely on God's approval, and they are all designed to get you talking when God has instructed you to remain silent. And if he can persuade you to break your silence unnecessarily or to deviate from alignment for even a moment, he will postpone the event. He does not cancel it. Instead, he postpones it. Currently, his only weapon is delay. This is why God is so strict with you about remaining silent. This is why he consistently directs you back to silence whenever you attempt to communicate. This is why he is so adamant about preserving your peace, as your current reluctance does not indicate weakness. Your reticence is a form of combat. Every day you don't respond, the enemy's strategy fails. Every conversation in which you refrain from participating is a trap to avoid. Every incomplete explanation saves energy. You are not being passive in your inactivity. Your composure is impressive. Your composure is a form of submission. Furthermore, obedience consistently positions you as a candidate for advancement. I am aware that you have been experiencing remorse, and I would like to address this. You feel remorseful for withdrawing from others. You feel remorse for not being as accessible as you once were. You regret not explaining your recent transformation. When people misinterpret your position, you feel bad about not defending yourself. You feel remorse for conserving your energy, as it means disappointing those who anticipate your availability. And the weight of that remorse rests on your chest. It prompts you to consider whether you are being unkind, distant, selfish, or cold. However, chosen one, please listen to me. Betrayal does not result from boundaries. Rejection does not result from distance. Silence isn't cruel. Punishment is not equivalent to protection. Furthermore, you are not responsible for the feelings of others toward your devotion to God. It is not your responsibility to ensure that others are comfortable with your development. It is not your responsibility to keep a modest size in order to ensure the safety of others. It is not your responsibility to explain spiritual transitions to people who are still physically alive. Your primary obligation is to God. Your obligation relates to your assignment. It is incumbent on you to protect the growth that God is fostering within you, even if it means disappointing those who expected you to remain unchanged. I'd like to inform you about an upcoming event. Mist is expected to dissipate. The confusion will eventually be resolved. The tranquility is about to be disturbed. And when it does, everything that has been hidden will be revealed. God is about to reveal your unidentified motives, intentions, and resistance, jealousy disguised as a smile, soft-spoken manipulation, and ostensibly concerned control. The entire situation is about to be revealed. No, it wasn't because you forced it, confronted it, or defended yourself. It was recognized by God. In addition, God manages it. When that disclosure occurs, you'll understand why he advised you to remain silent. You will understand the reasoning behind his precautionary measures against premature speech. You will realize that if you had defended yourself, explained yourself, or confronted people, you would have given them the opportunity to twist your words, question your motives, and delay your breakthrough. However, God has the right to defend you because you have remained silent, still, and aligned. When God defends you, no one can argue, manipulate, or twist. The truth is undeniable, and it is obvious to everyone. However, it is critical that you understand the following. The intent of this disclosure is not to exact retribution. It is intended to clarify. It is not intended to be harmful to others. It is meant to liberate you. It is not intended to make anyone feel embarrassed. It is intended to set boundaries. Because once the truth, motives, and intentions are revealed, you will be able to determine who is and is not eligible for the upcoming season. You will be aware of which relationships to invest in and which to discontinue. You will be aware of which voices to listen to and which to disregard. That clarity, that discernment, is God's gift to you as a result of this process. Therefore, your current responsibilities are straightforward. Continue to be stationary. Maintain silence. Maintain your alignment. Refrain from defending yourself. Please refrain from giving an explanation. Refrain from responding. Avoid exerting pressure. Avoid haste. Do not hesitate to have faith. Have faith that God sees the same things as you. Believe that God is aware of your knowledge. Have faith that God understands your emotions. Rely on the fact that He is already working in the background in ways you cannot see. Although it may appear to be a slow process, keep faith that His timing is perfect. Rest assured that His silence is not an absence, but rather an indication of preparation. Depend on His active, not passive, protection. Furthermore, while you are waiting, while you remain stationary, please allow me to inform you of new developments. You are being strengthened by God. He is strengthening your foundation so that you can bear the blessing when it comes. He is increasing your ability to get through the door when it opens. He is improving your discernment so that you can recognize the approaching adversary when it makes another attempt. He is strengthening your boundaries so that you can remain firm when others challenge you. He is establishing your identity so that you will not be swayed by criticism. He is ensuring your peace and preventing it from infiltrating you when chaos surrounds you. This period of silence is not without meaning. It is completely filled. It is replete with preparation. It is full of transformation. It is alive with divine activity beneath the surface. It is not yet visible to you. It is happening, even if it is not immediately visible. And one day, very soon, you will enter the fullness of what God has planned for you, reflecting on this peaceful period and expressing gratitude to Him. You'll notice that what appeared to be isolation was really incubation. Development was the cause of the apparent delay. What appeared to be silence was in fact a strategic approach. I must tell you one more thing before I conclude, chosen one. Others, including yourself, will be unable to recognize the version of you that emerges from this season, unlike God, who has always known your true self. You will approach the adversary with an assurance that needs no validation. You will be conversing with someone who has the right to communicate without requiring authorization. You will move with clarity that needs no explanation. You'll fall in love with a security that does not require reciprocation. You will serve with a purpose that does not require recognition. Additionally, individuals will wonder what happened to you. They will inquire as to what happened. and you will be unable to express it because it occurred in the privacy of a secret location, in the silence and solitude of moments with God that no one witnessed. That is the influence of the season. So, that is the purpose of this isolation. This is why God told you to keep this to yourself. The work He is doing in you is too sacred to explain, too personal to share, and too powerful to rush. Therefore, stay here. Continue to be stationary. Maintain acquiescence. And have faith that God will release you when the time is right, the preparation is finished, and the formation is complete. And when He does, nothing or no one will be able to stop what He has started. I'd like to talk about the somatic sensations you've been experiencing as your body adjusts to this change. You have been experiencing more fatigue than usual. This fatigue cannot be alleviated by sleep. Rather, it lingers in your bones, causing you to reconsider your plans despite the fact that you are not ill. It is the type of fatigue that causes you to retire earlier and wake up feeling exhausted. Psalm, you've been wondering if you're sick, if you should see a doctor, or if you're developing a condition, but you've decided there's nothing wrong with your body. Spiritual weight is having an effect on your body. You are carrying an object in the spirit realm that your physical body can detect but cannot fully comprehend. When God reshapes an individual, downloads revelation, or instills new levels of discernment and authority, the physical body feels pressure, heaviness, and fatigue. This is because the spiritual is filtered through the natural. As a result, now is the time to prioritize relaxation. This is why you are unable to persevere in this season as you have in previous endeavors. Your body requires rest because your spirit is working at a rapid pace. Your spirit is in the process of recalibration, which requires that your body remain at rest. Your body requires tranquility as a result of your spiritual evolution. Furthermore, it isn't just physical fatigue. Have you also been experiencing emotional swings? One moment you are unconcerned, and the next you are overcome with emotion. You can be inexplicably sad one moment and then peaceful the next. You can go from being optimistic to doubting everything in an instant. Furthermore, these emotional fluctuations are not related to any specific event. They were not triggered by any event. Nobody made any statements that would have triggered them. They appear and disappear in a manner similar to waves. And you've been fighting them in order to gain control, comprehend, and make sense of them. However, what if they do not need to be understandable? What if your current emotional experience is the death of the old version of yourself and the birth of the new version of yourself? Death and birth are both messy processes. Both are excruciating. Both people are experiencing discomfort. Both are indispensable. It is impossible to remain a caterpillar while transitioning into a butterfly. It is impossible to maintain your previous identity while transitioning to a new assignment. One entity must perish before another can thrive. Furthermore, the emotional response you are feeling is one of mortality. You are lamenting past versions of yourself that are no longer useful. You are releasing attachments that are no longer suitable for you. You are giving up expectations that were never yours to bear. And the procedure is painful. However, it does not cause you to collapse. It is conceiving you. Let me recount the visions. I am aware that you have been having unusual visions of late. Dreams that are more tangible than reality. Dreams in which you are unsuccessfully pursuing an object. Dreams in which you try to communicate but are unable to express your thoughts. Dreams in which you are in familiar places, but the surroundings are unfamiliar. Dreams in which people you know act out of character. Dreams that cause you to wake up at unusual times with a racing heart and a perplexed mind. Furthermore, you've dismissed them as stress dreams, random cerebral activity, and meaningless sleep disturbances. However, they are not insignificant. Those visions are the subconscious processing of information that your conscious mind has yet to fully comprehend. They are your spirit's attempt to communicate the events that are occurring in dimensions beyond your perception. The seek represents your soul's pursuit of the next level. God temporarily silences you, as evidenced by your inability to speak. Your perception is shifting as a result of familiar surroundings feeling different. Individuals who behave as strangers represent the progression of relationships as you grow. Your aspirations are not arbitrary. They are predicting. They demonstrate the spiritual events that are taking place, even if you are unable to express them naturally. Furthermore, you have an additional experience that you have not shared with anyone. You've noticed signs, numbers that repeat, times on the clock that pique your interest, songs that play just when you needed to hear them, conversations that speak directly to your situation, scriptures that jump off the page when you read them, and sermons that feel like they were preached just for you. You've also been wondering if you're overanalyzing events, have superstitious tendencies, or see patterns that don't exist. But you are not. Those indications are genuine. These confirmations are deliberate. God is communicating with you in the language your spirit understands. When the path ahead appears uncertain, He leaves clues for you to follow. He is sending you signals to let you know that you are not forgotten, that you are not alone, and that you are not off track. Each repeated number is a heavenly sign. Every precisely timed song conveys a message from your Father. Every synchronicity serves as proof that the events in your life are not coincidental. Orchestration has been implemented. The minor things that surround you serve to confirm God's larger actions. I will now inform you of the events that will take place following the conclusion of this season of silence, which will eventually end. This isn't a permanent solution. This will not continue indefinitely. This is a season, one that is predetermined, appointed, and purposeful. God will send you a signal when the preparation, transformation, and completion of the task are complete. Before you see it in your circumstances, you will feel it in your spirit. You will be aware even before you comprehend. Shifts will be perceived before they manifest. And when that moment arrives, everything changes dramatically. Doors that you've stopped knocking on will suddenly open. Opportunities you previously passed up will unexpectedly come back to haunt you. Individuals with whom you have ceased communication will unexpectedly contact you. Suddenly, resources you had stopped requesting will appear. The clarity for which you had stopped searching will suddenly be downloaded. A sudden realization will occur about the direction you abandoned your pursuit. Furthermore, it will not be an outcome that you forced. It won't be because of your manipulation. It will not be because you can network your way into it. The reason will be that your obedience and God's timing coincided. When these two elements come together, momentum transforms into a supernatural force. However, it is critical that you understand the following. The weight of your voice will be altered when God releases you from the silence, when He opens your mouth again, and when He grants you permission to speak. Your words will be understood differently. Your presence will have a noticeable effect on the rooms, as you are not the same person who entered this silent season. You entered one direction and are leaving another. You entered in need of validation and left with confidence. You went into the situation with a reactive mindset and are now emerging with a responsive mindset. You went into the situation on the defensive, but you emerged with a more critical perspective. You entered with a loud voice and emerged with a strong presence. Loud and powerful are two distinct concepts. Loud-mouthed people seek attention. It obeys powerful commands without prompting. People will immediately notice the difference. Certain people will commemorate it. They will recognize that something has changed within you and will be drawn to the object you are currently carrying. They'll want to spend more time with you. They'll consult with you. They'll appreciate your perspective. They will respect your boundaries. These individuals are eligible to participate in your upcoming season. These are the people who can manage the enhanced version of you. These are the people God has chosen to accompany you in the future. However, some will not commemorate it. The new you will make them uncomfortable. They will try to persuade you to return to your previous behaviors. They will use your past identity to pressure you into withdrawing once more. They will assess the validity of your new boundaries to determine if they are genuine or only temporary. They will question your progress, as if it requires their approval. They will perceive your calmness as a threat because it exposes their disorder. Furthermore, they will become irritated if you fail to defend, explain, or engage. They will call you changed, as if it were an insult. They will accuse you of being unique, as if differentiation is bad. They will accuse you of believing that you are superior to them, when in reality, you have simply improved upon your previous self. The following is the lesson God is teaching you through this process. Not all individuals who refer to you as changed are inaccurate. You did undergo a transformation. You are unique. But change is not betrayal. Abandonment is not synonymous with growth. Evolution is not arrogance. You have the right to outgrow individuals. It is permissible for you to outgrow certain locations. You have the freedom to mature into more mature versions of yourself. Additionally, you are not required to apologize to anyone for achieving the identity that God had always intended for you. There is no obligation to provide an explanation for adhering to divine guidance. You do not owe anyone access to a level that they are not capable of entering. This is the reason for the silence. Because if you had been conversing throughout this entire process, if you had been elucidating every shift, if you had been defending every boundary, you would have provided individuals with the means to dissuade you from your transformation. You would have permitted perspectives that would have caused you to be perplexed. Voices that would have delayed you would have been solicited. However, you safeguarded the work of God by remaining silent, processing privately, and maintaining your composure. Undoing it is now impossible. It is impossible to undo. There is no one who can convince you otherwise. It has been completed. This item is sealed. Permanence is its hallmark. Therefore, as you prepare to exit this season, as you prepare for the silence to cease, and as you prepare for God to release you into the next level, keep this in mind. You are not required to provide any evidence. You are not required to provide any defense. You are not required to provide any explanation. The evidence will be your life. The testimony will be your tranquility. The proof will be in your development. Let your transformation speak louder than any words you could ever say. In areas where your voice is unnecessary, allow your alignment to speak volumes. Allow your obedience to unlock doors that your diligence could not. And if you wish, you may disclose the details when individuals inquire about the events that transpired, when they are interested in learning about the manner in which you underwent a transformation, or when they are curious about the changes that occurred. However, you are not required to do so, as the individuals who are expected to be informed will be able to identify it. It will be discernible to those who are intended to comprehend it. Individuals who are eligible for your subsequent season will commemorate it without necessitating an exhaustive explanation. And those who fail to comprehend it, those who question it, and those who resist it are merely demonstrating that they are not a part of the future. And that is acceptable. Your destination is not visited by all individuals. Not everyone is called to the same calling as you. Not everyone is capable of carrying the weight you are about to transport. If this message arrived at the exact moment you needed it, or if it appeared that God had directly addressed your situation, do not simply listen and leave. Instead, respond. Type Amen in the comments to express that you have heard him and have chosen to trust his timing over your emotions, rather than as a ritual. By choosing silence, you are disregarding your need to communicate. You prioritize his methodology over your desire for convenience. Amen is a single word with the power to transform the spirit. Heaven moves on your behalf when you agree to it. And if this message has brought clarity to confusion, peace to chaos, or confirmation to feelings you have been experiencing but unable to articulate, please take action on my behalf. Press the like button. I understand that it may appear insignificant, but it is critical in spreading this message to others who are currently experiencing similar circumstances. Other people who feel isolated, those who have been told to remain silent, and those who need to know that their silence does not indicate weakness. It is obedience. Your like could be the factor that allows this message to reach them at the exact time they need it. Finally, if you were listening and thought of someone who has been isolated, unusually quiet, or unable to articulate their experiences, please share this with them. Send it via text, email, or any other means available, as this may serve as the confirmation they are looking for. This could be the message that helps them realize that their isolation is not a form of punishment. It's the chosen one, the preparation. Please keep in mind that your silence is not an indicator of weakness. It is the embodiment of wisdom. Your stillness is instantaneous. It's a strategy. Your separation is not punishment. It is protecting. Maintain an intimate relationship with God. Maintain silence in the presence of others. Maintain your objectives. The version of yourself that is being formed in the silence is essential for what comes next. And that is the version that the world has been waiting for.